My name is Ronald Brooke Johnson. I was born in San Diego, California, at the naval station there, on May the 15th, 1953, and raised in a Navy family. My dad was all of 17 years old. My mother was almost 16, and children raising children, and anyway, those are my roots. My father was in the Navy, so he was out on cruises a lot, these ships a lot, and sometimes up to a year sometimes. So when he came home, the whole dynamics of the family changed. So mother was really, you lived with mom, and mom was cool, and she was young, and we were just trying to make it, and we were just little silly kids then. But then dad would come home and the whole dynamics would change. And he'd be like, oh, well, and we'd all go out for haircuts, first thing. And so it was like living in two households. It was a little schizophrenic, I have to admit. But, they seemed to love each other looking back on it, so they probably did the best they could. My earliest memory as a child would have to be being outside, playing with other children. We lived in these Navy housing projects over here in Jacksonville, Cumberland Roads, and now it's at Florida State College of Jacksonville, Kent campus. And but I remember being outside and in the grass and playing with other children. It was mostly those sort of things. As far as my education goes, I attended public schools, was a fair student, a little hyper, probably would have been hyperactive. That had been giving me some pills, I'm sure. But it was a good childhood education-wise. We moved around. We'd go to San Diego and we'd spend a year there, and then we'd go back to Jacksonville, spend a year there. So there was a lot of bouncing back and forth. I went to Fishware Elementary for 1 year, and then San Diego Elementary the next, things like that. I finally settled in Jacksonville the last few years and went to Forest High School, which has now been renamed, as you know, West Side High School, because we can't have any high schools out there named after the Ku Klux Klan originator, so we can't have any of that. So Forest High School is now West Side High School. Yeah, then I went to Hawaii. Well, I joined the Navy in between there. That's what happened. Yeah, and I joined the Navy and became a Navy corpsman, and worked in the hospitals, Groton, Connecticut, Great Lakes, Memphis, Great Lakes, Illinois. We ended up in Memphis, and then finally we ended up in Hawaii. I got married while I was in the Navy at that time. So and then we had a child. That's why we got married. And great kid. And we went to Hawaii. She was stationed in Hawaii, and I went back to school there and finished my bachelor's at the University of Hawaii. Yeah. My brother's name is James David Johnson, and he's a year behind me in birth. So he was born in October 1st, 54, I believe. And then we have a sister, Rhonda Lee, who was born on May the 10th in 1950, 55 or 6, yeah, one of those. There's always that little lap there. But I have a brother and a sister, like I say, one of each. And we grew up together as kids, spent a lot of time together as kids. And we were pretty solid family for many years. It was pretty solid unit. Yeah, for many years. Yeah. My first wife and I were married while she was in the Navy, and she was from Virginia Beach, Virginia, and nice girl. We had a great son. We still have a great son. His name is Eric. Uh, Oh, her name is Debbie, and we stayed together for a good 6 years, maybe. Things didn't work out, and she married a naval officer, a medical naval officer, a dentist, and doing quite well. So good. That's good. That's good. And Eric, we just saw him this weekend over there at the Melon Mushroom. Great visit. He's doing very well. He has a lovely wife, Jasmine, and he has my two grandchildren, Isabella and Gibson. Gibson. Yes, I was married a second time to Linda, and we had two children, Ariel and Andrew. Great kids, wonderful children. Linda and I had a good relationship for many years. Um, she's a good person, good heart. She's making soaps now. She's really into natural made soaps, and I wish her well. I hope she makes it. Well, Eric, my oldest, is he's a talker, and he is a very intelligent young man. Loves his family, and he's a go-getter. Yeah, he'll leave you in the dust. So he brings out that part of me. I see that we share that trait. Of course, he's a young man, so he's good with it still, But he's very intelligent. Um, Ariel is a wonderful girl, a wonderful young woman. She's matured over the years. She's really interested in doing anime cartoons and drawings, and she's working on these boards, and it's kind of cool. The technology that she's playing with is amazing, and she's helping her mother. And we also, Ariel and I did a book together, 101 Kid Poems for Fun, which should be on the ebook, hopefully. And we did that together. That was a lot of fun. And of course, Andrew, he's my heart. I just love Andrew so much. He's a wonderful young man. He works so hard, and he has such keen insight. I've just never seen that in anybody else. Really, I mean, I just love him so much. Of course, one of the best things that ever happened to me was when I was 10. The Beatles came out, and I was totally enthralled and caught up in the Beatlemania, the magic and the music at that time, and I really sort of began to separate from my family with the Beatles, and it was a whole generational thing, and not a lot of people realize that John Kennedy had just been assassinated just about 2 months before that. And the country was really looking for a good catharsis, a good release. And the Beatles came out, and my generation just went ape crazy. They just went ape nuts over the Beatles. And but their music, fortunately, their music turned out to be quite wonderful. So that was been one of certainly the most, and my most impressionable musical experience that I had initially. Yeah. Another good thing that happened to me I made it happen, was my education. More than anything else, good education will open your eyes and make you see things and that you probably wouldn't normally think of. I'm not putting anybody who's uneducated down, but in my case personally, the colleges that I went to the FSCJ, and then I went to University of Memphis, and I went to the University of Guam, then I went to the University of Hawaii, and then finally I went to graduate school at Florida State University. So my education was diverse, and it was an amazing thing. Yeah, my mother used to play Elvis Presley records, and you heard that music on the radio, and so me being the spastic, hyperactive kid that I was, I would take a broom and just just shred it. I was an early shredder, and I would just shred this broom playing air guitar, and that was my guitar for many years. In fact, I have to break out the broom once in a while and still play it. My first guitar, I had a series of bad guitars for many years, where the strings were like way off the neck, and I didn't know how it was supposed to be, and of course my parents were no roadmap either. So my last bad guitar, and I had a string of them, was a Stella 12-string guitar, and there's a picture of me playing it in the high school auditorium in high school, and boy, that guitar was a tank, and that guitar finally ended up getting burnt up. Our house burned down at the Naval Air Station on Thanksgiving Day. I forget what year exactly, but it was a while back. And that guitar got burned up in the fire. After that, I started paying a little more attention to what kind of guitars I got. I fell in love with the Breedloves. The Breedloves are great guitars. Taylors and the Gibsons and the Fenders. You really have to go play them. You have to go take them off the wall and play them before you buy that. I wouldn't buy one online. The very first band I played in professionally was a band called Bamboo, and I was the bass player. And the rest of these guys were great musicians, and they played, Grateful Dead songs and all, Doobie Brothers, and all I had to do was keep up on the bass. So that was my first band, was Bamboo. We played on Guam. And that was the first professional band that we played in. I got fairly good with it. We played together for a year. We opened one time for Chuck Berry. That was our claim to fame, was opening for Chuck Berry. And throughout my musical travels, I would have loved to have been one of the guys in the band, and with somebody else in charge. Once in a while that would happen. Once in a while I'd hook up with a country western band or something where somebody else is in charge, and we would learn the music. And I enjoyed that very much. But mostly throughout my musical career, I've had to put the band together myself. It was either I bring in some fellas or it's not, it's not going to get done. So it's always been my experience that I had to, and sometimes with very shaky results. Some of the early bands we played in were, of course, Jawbridge and Incognito down in Tallahassee. We played Smitty's, the old club, the old black club there, and on the Chitlin circuit. And we played a lot of early reggae, a lot of Bob Marley. And I played with other bands now and then, but it was usually either me solo or me sort of in charge, bringing a bunch of people together who usually had no business being pulled together. But we always had fun. It was a good time. And then lately it's been, I played solo at Paradise Alley, this club, this bar at the Jacksonville Beach. I did 2 years there every weekend. And it was while I was there and bringing in people like Rebecca Zapin and Raven Stands Alone and Bettina Makeley that they began to turn me on to the Florida scene, the Florida folk scene. And it was there that I first heard about that. And then after I got into the Florida folk scene, that was all she wrote. I just found my niche for the next decade, the next 10 years. And slowly got into it and slowly got better, and people began to recognize me and remember my name, and it was folk music, which was what I was playing really. It was folk music with a cause to it, and so I got into that pretty deeply, and eventually became, the president of the North Florida Folk Network, and won the Will McLean Song Contest with that song, Rescue Train. Yeah. and a bunch of other, won some money, song contests, some of the local bars. But so the last 10 years, the last dozen years of my music has been wrapped around the state of Florida and playing Florida folk scene. And that's been my best years. Yeah, absolutely. It led to me writing a book. Well, I was doing a column for the Jacksonville Times-Union called Today in Florida History. And I got a call out of the blue from History Press, and they said, hey, we see that you're a writer, and we'd like maybe a book. And I said, oh, great, a book about today in Florida history. I figured it'd be a book about, today in Florida histories. I said, no, we don't really want anything about that. Oh, what else would you like? Well, what else do you know? So I said, well, the folk music scene, and they thought about it, and I said, yeah, that'll do. That's how we got to it. And I wrote the book initially just trying to put all my friends in and just squeezing everybody in there, and it was like 62,000 words. They only wanted 35, which is barely a paper in college. But so it's a short book. But so we had to do a rewrite and take a second approach to it, and Janice really helped me a lot with that. She was my editor, and she'd read my copies. No, this is garbage. No, this is no good. But she's a good editor, and she really helped me out. But so the book began to formulate, and I had some deadlines with History Press. They work with deadlines. So we got them all in, squeezed them all in, and lo and behold, the book came out. I was shocked, and it's had a little success so far. It's selling well right now. So yeah, at least Amazon thinks so. Well, if I had some advice really to pass on to family members, it's just be good, keep a good heart, live your life best you can. Try not to be cruel. Try not to be mean. Be yourself. Try to bring out that, whatever that is. Incorporate music into your life. Read a good book now and then. And really celebrate love and affection to the people that you love, because one day they're not going to be around anymore. They're going to be gone. So love the people that you love. And I always thought about that Allen Ginsberg poem. If you're going to love, you should love. If you're going to take a walk, you should take a walk. Walk when you walk. Talk when you talk. And basically that boils down to being in the here and now of the moment, and actually celebrating that joy of that moment as well. So it took me a long time to get there, to learn that. But it's once I got there, it's definitely worth knowing. So I'd probably just pass that down, and not smoke too much and not drink too much, and the usual stuff. Yeah. You want to talk about dying? Hey, I'm dying out here, folks. I'm dying. I've died before. Hey, this is nothing. You need to be on stage over at the Comedy Zone. And that there, you die. We got the news last week ago, I guess, that the cancer that I have is terminal. And it hits you hard. But everybody dies. That's the bottom line. And I was fortunate enough to find out, sort of, ballpark figure, when that was going to happen. So I was blessed in that regard, because I was able to say goodbyes and say, make amends and patch things up in a case or two with people that I actually loved very much. And I would suggest to people that, it's a shame, but a lot of people don't die that way. They die very suddenly, wink of an eye, So if that happens, you don't really get a chance to do that. You don't get a chance to really say goodbye and to touch somebody, for the last time. And you're headed out the door. You're busy living life. And a lot of people die that way. and not having a clue they're not going to be coming home that evening. And it's hard to live your life like that every day, but it's just something to be aware of and have in the back of your mind. I was blessed, and I'm very thankful, and my life has been so wonderful. I've done stand-up comedy, I've done skydiving, I've traveled all over many places, and just had a great life. And I'm in love right now, so in love with a beautiful woman who loves me back, and it's just my life's been a glorious thing. So I've been lucky. I wish everybody could be so lucky. I know they're not. I know a lot of people live miserable lives, and it's quite unfortunate. But in a lot of cases, we make that choice. We make that decision of what kind of life we're going to have every day. And I would just encourage people I would just encourage them to stay positive and to enjoy their time. Every day is a gift. Just enjoy their time while they're here. And that's all.